Michael and Annie, you gotta go to another place. She's getting married, so we're hearing all the details. I know. Very exciting. Can you still hear them? Because they're still talking.
I can.
No.
I don't know whether anybody else can.
Okay. Well, it is 5:30. I will call the meeting to order. And because of Zoom, we will not do the flag salute, but please pledge to the United States of America, especially with everything that's happening. Are there any amendments to the agenda?
I have one. I'll make a motion to include a discussion regarding placing an item on the ballot, which would allow the voters to vote on the question of retail cannabis in the city of Virgins.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Lynn, I have an amendment as well, which is if you're ready.
I am. Go ahead.
What it deals with, there's two items on the agenda that I think relate to the self-contained breathing apparatus.
Yes.
And I mean, maybe others on the board are interested in adopting the FY22 budget, but the motion that I intend to make relative to the self-contained breathing apparatus is relative to amending the current budget, current fire department budget for the current year.
Okay.
So those two things can be joined as far as I'm concerned.
All right. And we also have a request by Habitat for here in Virgins. If you remember, they are going to be new to our charity list, and they were supposed to have 106 signatures. And as of today, I don't know what the end number ended up to be, but the other day they had 60, but then we had that massive COVID breakout. So that campaign ended, and they would like us to accept Rennie, do you have a new number of what that number is?
No one came in, so I'm assuming it's still the 60. It may be in fact more than that.
Okay, instead of the 106. So that needs to be on the agenda also. So does anybody object to these new amendments at all?
Do you want to deal with my appointment at another meeting?
I don't mind dealing with it tonight.
No, we can do it. Okay, with all those amendments, do we have any visitors that would like to speak on any Whoa, we're echoing here.
No, you're on two screens.
Yeah, you gotta turn one off, Lynn, or mute one.
I don't
That's
I don't even see myself on two screens, so I don't
No,
know.
we're not.
It said Mellis.
Oh, Mellis, okay. Anyway, is there any visitors that would like to say, address anything that is not on the agenda?
Citizens comment. Visitors are scheduled folks. I think it's citizens comments that after minutes.
I've got minutes after visitors.
No, I mean, visitors has been where somebody is actually scheduled to
Oh,
speak, you know.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood what that is. Okay,
Yeah.
no problem.
Lynn, I'm gonna log out and log back in because maybe I'm causing the feedback.
You're on two screens, Mel.
You're good now, Mel. Don't
You're
log
good
out
now.
anymore.
Sounds like you're good.
Well, I can't see anybody though.
That might be good
Okay,
too.
now I'm there. Gotcha. Okay, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, so we had a bunch of minutes. Not sure how we're going to address them all except one at a time. Did anyone have any amendments to the December 11th minutes?
Yeah, the only amendment that I have is that you should be referred to as acting mayor.
Okay,
And
Go ahead, Dickie.
my concern would be the opposite. I think this discussion is going to come up with a later agenda item. I don't know if it's appropriate for us to table accepting the minutes until later in the meeting.
I would have to agree with Dickie.
there's just this one meeting or all of them? I'm not sure what you're asking.
I think any reference where it says acting mayor, I would find that to be incorrect. I think I think realistically, when that discussion comes up, we'll be able to one way or another put that to bed, and then following that, we can approve the minutes.
Is that agreeable with all the other council people?
Yep.
Yes.
Mel?
I don't, if they want to defer action on the minutes, I don't have a problem with that.
Okay,
I don't either.
all right.
Thank you.
I'm not seeing any objections, so I'm going to move on. Okay, now the citizens' comment, if anything is not on the agenda. Okay, not seeing any. Park and Recreation is off the agenda for tonight. Rennie, do you want to talk to the approval of the $5,000 for the watershed fund?
Yes, the Parks and Recreation Committee, I think it was at the previous meeting, had wanted to have some money for trail design so that they could submit a grant for at least part of the construction of a trail. And they actually got a proposal, and it looks like it's going to be $4,500, and that's the appropriate fund to take that out of.
So do we have a motion so we can start discussion?
Oh, we'll make the motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Yes,
What
then,
did-
I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
I'll wait.
I was just wondering what the balance was in that fund right now. Do we have an idea, or do you have that readily available, Rennie?
It should be. I may not have that with me. All I did was ask the treasurer, is there enough to cover $5,000? And that's,
Okay. Mel?
Oh, okay. So first off, relative to money, later on in the agenda packet, I had Rennie include the special funds spreadsheet that you all had received before. Obviously, that's as of June 30, so it's not up-to-date information, but there's information relative to all of the funds, unaudited, obviously. So that should tell you. I think. So anyway, that will show you how much is available from the earnings. One of the things relative to this trail, I don't know what the percentage is, but I think it's clear that a lot of this trail is on school property. And also this trail relates to the outdoor classroom. And I really, I would like the school district to be involved with financing this project, if you will, if we're going to move forward. And I really can't support the motion to allocate $4,500 without some portion, preferably at least half of it, being paid by the school.
Any other discussion by any of the other council members?
Let me just make a comment, though. Without the design, which is, we're really tight on time, without the design, then there's no possibility of the grant. That will go out the window. The pre-application had been submitted, and the grant, you have to have a design. And so it's a bigger thing.
Is there anyone from the rec department who could speak to that process as far as
Yeah, Kathy.
the bringing on the design and whether or not being able to include in that design process how the design that they come up with, how it affects the school property?
So the design itself, you all were given last meeting, the whole recreational trails program grant, and actually the Google map of where the trails, the projected trails would go. We have also spoken, we have been meeting, we have met with the facilities committee at the Addison Northwest School District, and we are meeting again. We know there are some drainage issues that the school needs to deal with, and they would be partners with us as far as when the trails are built, that they would be working with us. Yes, it's on school property, but yes, it's also on city property as well. And there's the different pieces of that proposal are going to be used at different times. So the I don't want to call it third phase, but one of the phases from New Haven Road to the boardwalk, which is where the wetlands is all city property. The boardwalk is all city property. The wetlands and the trails itself on the high school property are just that, trails. There's not, no footings. It's a shore pack trail that would go the outside perimeter of the high school. Anything else? Actually, Tim or anybody else that's on the rec committee that has helped with this grant?
I will say, as part of the survey, the walking trail was, if it wasn't number one, it was right up there as number one.
And it is. Walking trails and connecting the schools and connecting the neighborhoods to the schools was huge on the survey.
I think Tim Cook wanted to add something.
Yeah, I unmuted him.
I just wanted to add that the boardwalk that Kathy spoke about is like the keystone here, and making that literal bridge to get from the city property, which connects to New Haven Road, to the school properties, is the lion's share of what we need the design for. And if we continue to develop trails in Virgins, like, we're going to have to deal with wetlands. And my hope is that we get this design and we have a blueprint to start building off other trail designs from, little blueprint. And, again, and I think, like Kathy said, the part that's on the school is a trail. The part that we really need the nuts and bolts plans for to nail down cost is the boardwalk, which is on city property.
I really think that this is an important project to the city, the overall city, and to whether it's on the city part or on the school part, there probably is going to be a time when the school has to participate in the cost. But for the planning, I don't know, I think that's totally necessary. And I really would like to see this move forward. I understand where Mel's coming from, but as the survey has indicated, this is important to what our citizens want and need, and I don't think we can do it without the plan.
Is the proposed boardwalk on the 8.34 acres that is off New Haven Road? Is that the situation? Because I thought that the boardwalk was in close proximity to the outdoor classroom.
No, the furthermost outdoor classroom trail ties around into the city property, and that is the connection to the outdoor classroom. All of the outdoor classroom trails that are based around the school, it does not come into contact other than the one that basically wanders off until we started trying to make this connection.
Okay, thank you.
David?
I have a comment, and I'll obviously support this because I agree that the connectivity is a key thing. It's one of the things that, it's one of our biggest strengths is that Virgins is a walkable, bikeable city. I would like, if we can, at some point, I think it is important to get some level of participation from the school. If only for the reason that, the city already provides a lot of resources to the surrounding community. And we're the center of things, but we receive very little financial participation from the surrounding communities. So if there's an opportunity in the future to leverage some funding from the schools, I am in favor of that. Obviously in favor of this project.
So this is Erin Roach, and I'm on the Recreation Committee. And I just wanted to acknowledge that the school district has invested in other projects of the Recreation Committee in the past, such as the ice rink, which they paid for and is on city grounds. And so I think that it's really important that the city not expect the school district to pay for, disproportionately pay for recreation in the city.
Any other comments before I call for a vote? Okay, all those in favor of
Did
approving?
someone make a motion, Lynn?
That's what I'm asking.
I will make the motion to spend
No,
up
you
to
already made the
5,000.
motion. We already had, this was the discussion.
Oh, okay.
So my understanding is we're changing it from 5,000 to 4,500. Is that correct? That's part of your motion?
Yes.
Yes? All right. I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? There's the word. Great. You have your 4,500. Okay.
Thank you,
Adopt
thank you.
Good job, guys.
emergency mutual aid agreement with Public Works.
Yes, this is something that the Public Works, the local Public Works Department is actually mostly at Addison, the entire Addison County, have been working on for a while. The agreement is very similar to what we've had for many, many years with the fire departments, except for Public Works, for them to assist one another with equipment and personnel. And I think that Jim Laro is on here someplace.
Yeah, I'm here, Rennie.
Oh, good.
Yep.
Do you want to make any more comment about that?
The other biggest, most important comment would be that if we did have, as we've had in the past, a FEMA disaster, by having this Addison County mutual aid agreement with all the towns, our reimbursement would be a lot easier to get. As in the past, when I sent vehicles to Rochester to help them, there wasn't a mutual aid agreement, so we just helped them out and did whatever we could. So in the future, if everyone does sign to this mutual aid agreement, then it'll be a lot easier to get reimbursed. And the other important thing is, if I had 2 or 3 towns come to Virgins and help me, they would not be liable. We would not be liable for breakdowns and injuries because all the towns take responsibility for their own people and their own equipment, just like we do in the fire service.
And it's what you're recommending, Jimmy, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, do we have a motion on the floor so we can discuss?
So
We'll
moved.
make the motion to approve this.
Second.
Okay, is there any other discussion by the council or any questions? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Great. Passed. The conflict of interest policy.
Oh, we had that. Do we have the fire department stuff, or do you want to skip over that?
I thought we hadn't gotten to the fire department stuff yet.
Yeah, that was the next item. Adopt FY 2022 fire department budget.
Oh, I might have the wrong agenda then. I don't have that one on the sheet I have.
Okay,
So-
so there's the item D, 5D, adopt a FY 2022 fire department budget. It was in your packet. And that's a proposed budget, and the reason it's in there, and maybe you don't even need to adopt it, but the towns around us who pay into running the Virgins Fire Department, they have a budget schedule that's much different than ours, and they are doing their budget right now. And they requested that that we give them an indication of what we might be charging them for the new fiscal year. So the chief made up this budget, and actually Mel and me and the chief met. And this budget increases the current fire department budget for next year around $11,000. And so I've communicated that to the towns around us that are part of our fire department, that what they might expect as an increase. But it's $11,000 in total for all four. Is it four? I'm trying to remember. Is it 4 towns?
Yes, 4 towns.
4 towns. And so so that's why it's here, just to kind of solidify that. And Mel has some comment about the current budget, and I'm not sure about that. I didn't put that on, but.
So first off, obviously I agree with Rennie that we do want to be able to provide solid information to the other 3 towns that we contract with. And the motion that I'm about to make hopefully will make everyone feel a little bit better as it relates to future police budgets. And I would prefer not to be adopting the fire department FY22 budget at this time. I mean, we have a new election coming up, and to me, that budget should be formally adopted through our budget process. But I fully understand and agree with Rennie that they want to have some idea of where things are at. So I have the following motion, and my motion is that we amend the fire department budget for FY21 to increase line item 271020 by $65,000 and allocate up to $80,000 from the Ray E. Davison Growth Fund and to be paid back by June 30th, 2024, and to authorize the purchase of the 20 self-contained breathing apparatus for the fire department.
Second.
I'll second that.
Yeah, I see what you're doing, Mel. You're actually containing in your motion how to actually go through with what we had discussed about using those funds from various sources.
Yes, and what this will do will enable us to make this purchase. And later on in the fiscal year, we might be able to pay down part of the $80,000 in the current fiscal year. And then by then we'll be able to see into the future a little bit more as to the pace of returning that $80,000. Bill Scott, who was the executive of the Ray Davidson estate, Jim Brewer had a conversation with him, and he fully supports allocating these funds, understanding that it is to be paid back, and he just desired that it be paid back in the shortest period of time possible. And so that's why my motion was that it be paid back no later than June 30, 2024.
So we have a motion on the floor. We have a second. Is there any discussion or questions by anyone? Anyone in the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstaining? Good. Now, my agenda says conflict of interest. Is that
Yep.
different than yours?
No, that's the right one.
Okay.
So.
All right.
The conflict of interest policy, it's a policy that at the organizational meeting in March, after the elections, that the council adopts and then signs it. And it was adopted around that time, but it didn't end up being signed. But then now we have actually a new council because 4 members were not there at the time that the policy was adopted. So I'm not sure that we really need to adopt the policy per se because it was adopted, but the council, the current council, will have to sign it. And obviously, since we're not here all together in one room to sign it as it usually has been done, then we'll deal with it with electronic signatures. But I just wanted you to know that you need to be signing that policy. That is done every year at the same time. And if you feel that you need to re-adopt it, that's fine too. But it was adopted in March.
Okay, I don't think there's any necessary, action that we need to take except send that out again so everybody can sign it.
Okay.
And would
Just a
that be the
question.
the old board too?
Yes, if you didn't sign it, we don't have a document that shows that anybody signed it. So it would be everyone.
Okay. Ian, did you have a question?
I was just more of wondering why I didn't get signed if the election happened in March, why it's coming out now.
I think
Nothing
it's
really relevant, but
I think it's because shortly after that meeting, we started going into the COVID meetings of Zoom, and there was no ability to really do it. And at the time, we may not have had the Adobe software that gives us the ability to sign electronically.
I'm sure that's the case because we started right away and after the beginning of March or the end of March to go to virtual. So I think that probably is the right explanation. Okay.
Then let me relative to the statute as it relates to conflict of interest, the statute does not require signatures anyway, but that's the way that this conflict of interest policy was drafted. And it really, the reason why there's signatures there is to make sure that every member fully understands what the policy is as it relates to conflict of interest, but the signatures aren't necessarily required by the law. You know, it was adopted in March, and so that is the policy. And so I bring this up more to make sure that people, new members of the board, have this policy.
Jill?
I just wanted to, so I'm hearing that this policy was understood to be in effect as like on or about March, 10th of 2020, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And had there been did you guys have a conflict of interest policy before this one?
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
You
for
did?
years.
Okay.
Every
Okay.
year we sign one.
Okay, so it was signed in 2019 and then 2020, it was just understood that this one was adopted and the signatures just didn't happen because of all the COVID craziness, right?
It was way
Okay.
more years than that, Jill.
I'm sorry?
Many years. It's way more than 2019. It goes back a number of years, I think.
Well, yeah, I don't need to go back into the history books, but just 2019, 2020 is good enough for me.
Okay.
All right, thanks, guys.
Okay, the establishment of Restoration and Preservation Reserve Fund.
Okay, as soon as I can find it here, I think I put in the packet, the law. There's actually a law on the books that, that says that towns and cities should be establishing this Restoration and Preservation Reserve Fund. And so that's why I put it on there. Actually, Mal is the one that told me about it because I didn't even know there was that law. And to merge the two funds that we already have into this one fund, which I think in the packet, I had a copy of the law. And the two funds that we're merging into this covers what is intended for this new reserve fund.
So do we need to, do we have to make a motion for this, Rennie?
Yes.
Or just,
Yes.
this is notification? Okay. So we need a motion to establish this then.
Yes,
So I would make the motion to, in accordance with, I think it's 24 VSA 28 something or other, whatever that reference is, that we create the Preservation and Restoration Fund and merge the existing records restoration and records computerization funds into this newly created fund.
Okay.
Is there any other discussion or questions that you might have of Rennie? Is there any question from the public? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ian's opposed?
And I'm in.
I didn't
good.
understand. Ian.
Late
Said
way.
he's in.
Voted yes.
Oh, okay, sorry. And any abstaining? Okay, the motion passes. Notice of vacancies of public offices.
yeah, let me just make a few comments before we get into
Wait,
this.
you know what? Before we get into this, because I know this will be long, I'm sorry. Let's do the cannabis question.
Okay, I believe, I made the motion. I believe we have Jason Farrell on.
Now, let me find Jason.
Yep. And so if we can unmute Jason.
Yeah, he's unmuted.
He can give us all a little background into this.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can.
Excellent, thanks. I appreciate your taking the time to add this to the agenda this evening. I appreciate it very much. My name is Jason Farrell. I live on Sunset Drive. I've been a resident for a long time, and I've been a long time before I've been before the city council. But I'm here this evening because last October, Governor Scott announced that he was going to allow Senate Bill 54 to become law. And Act 164, an act to relating, I should say, to the regulation of cannabis became law on October 7th. There are many steps that are outlined in the law that that the state's going to need to do before the laws, between the passage of the law last year and when retail cannabis is actually going to be permitted by the Vermont Cannabis Control Board in August of 2022. And that's why I'm actually here this evening to really talk to you about starting that one part, at least, of that work with me. So during the 2-year session that they took to pass this law, and it's been debated much longer than that in the state of Vermont, but during that time, there was a significant amount of debate over whether or not the bill should be required. I'm sorry, whether cities and towns should be required to opt in to allow retail cannabis, or whether or not they should be required to opt out to restrict it. As passed, the law requires the cities and towns to opt in as it applies only to the retail sale of cannabis. And so that really brings me to section 863 of the act titled Regulation by Local Government. And it says, prior to a cannabis retailer or an integrated licensee operating within a municipality, the municipality shall affirmatively permit the operation of such cannabis establishments by majority vote of those present and voting by Australian ballot at an annual or special meeting warned for that purpose. A municipality may place retailers or integrated licensees or both on the ballot for approval. So the municipality shall affirmatively permit by Australian ballot at an annual or special meeting warned for that purpose is what it says. So I'm here tonight not to debate the merits of whether the question that the law requires we ask of citizens is right or wrong. What I'm here this evening to ask the city council to do is to please add this question to the city's warning for town meeting days, because it's in keeping with the law that was passed. And it's also the right strategic move to prepare our city for a budding business opportunity that's right before us, pun intended. And so the question I'm asking you to do is, shall the city of Vergennes permit the operation of licensed cannabis retailers subject to such municipal ordinances and regulation as the city council may lawfully adopt and implement? My understanding is that each of the city councilors was prepared with that question before the meeting. They had that in their possession, and I'll shut up now and take questions. Thank you for entertaining this question.
I just want to ask a quick question. If Brittany has all that language.
Yeah, well, I have it, so, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So we need a motion on the floor.
So Lynn,
Motion?
I think,
I was gonna, let me put forth a motion because we really can't approve an article tonight because we're gonna be approving the warning in a few weeks. So but we obviously have made motions and made commitments relative to tax exemptions for some organizations. So I'm gonna move that the city council commit to including this article on our town meeting warning.
Second.
Any questions or discussion by the council? Any questions or comments from the public? Then I will call the question because I don't see anything.
Can I say something?
Oh, hi, Jesse. Yes.
Hey, sorry, my video is not on. I'll turn my video on. Hi there. I just want to mention that Jason mentioned the budding business, pun intended, piece of this conversation. But I also want to mention the significant public health piece of this conversation that also exists and that be acknowledged in this group and to these people. I also want to ask if there's any plans on an informational meeting to help inform the voters.
Jason, is that a plan? Are
I
you?
have to, I think she's asking that of you. I'm here just to ask for your input on the question that I put before you.
well, it would be on the warning for the annual meeting. I'm not sure how the annual meeting is going to take place under these conditions, but that is a place where there is discussion of items that are on the ballot.
I do have a question for Jason, if that's okay.
Sure.
Jason, is there a reason why you're rushing for this to be on the ballot since it doesn't go into effect until 2022?
There is not a reason I'm rushing by any means. The question is allowed to be asked in two different ways. Okay, so the question can be asked whether the city council puts it on the warning and adds it to the ballot, or it says that we as citizens have a right under law to, within 47 days of a town meeting being held, we could deliver to Brittany 100 signatures, I think it is roughly 5% of the registered voters' rolls. So there's two ways to do that, Jesse. However, there's also another way, which is unfortunate because I'm not sure within 2 days I'd be able to get 100 signatures. And I don't think it's the right thing for me to be, or anybody to be out in public collecting signatures right now, as it's a public health hazard to do so. I think it's important that this question is asked, and I think that we have a right to ask it, and that could happen actually with 100 signatures, and then as long as they're verified and validated, then Brittany would be forced to actually hold this special election, as it says in the law, within 60 days as governed by other sections of the statute. So I'm not here to debate whether or not we should be doing it in the timeline. I think it's a really important question. It's a legal question, and it's one that, frankly, the voters or citizens the legislature contemplated citizens having input on. And I'm just asking for that question to be asked because it's legal, and I believe it's the right thing to do. As a planning commissioner and as a development review board member for many, many years, I think it's strategically the right thing to also do, as this is a legal and viable business that will be happening within communities that surround us, and we should be competing for that business.
Do you have data that supports that viable business?
The law, I'm going to hand it back to Lynn because I'm not here again to debate the merits of this. I'm asking the city council to consider the question be asked as permitted by the law. And so I would rather answer the questions from the city council. Thank you.
Yeah, I understand that. And I understand there's going to be two sides to this story, but whether my question, I guess, would be is if the city voters said yes to this, what commitment would the council or the city have to allowing this to go forward without further discussion? You know that, Jason?
I think I can answer that, Lynn.
Okay.
The question makes reference to permits and the adoption of ordinances as it pertains to the establishments. And so if this was rejected by the voters, then that's the end of it. If it's approved by the voters, then that sends a message to the city council to begin drafting applicable ordinances and regulation. Maybe Jason can correct me if I'm wrong.
That is correct.
I think that, and I would agree with both Mel and Jason, and I think what we're here to do tonight is just to answer the question of, whether or not, that this is going to, I believe that this will get, that this will come to a vote one way or another. And it can come to a vote by this council agreeing to put it on the ballot, or it could come to the vote, to a vote later on by Jason or whoever else getting the signatures and having it come up and require us spending money at a special election. And, for a variety of reasons, I'm not convinced that we need to do that. But I will say that, this is an important question. And there's certainly a lot of questions that would need to be answered. And I would say that I'm not sure if the city needs to do it, but certainly somebody, I would welcome the opportunity, as I'm sure everybody else would, for there to be some sort of a forum to answer a lot of those questions in advance of it. But tonight, we're just trying to decide, the only question we're really trying to decide is, should this go on the ballot? And I believe that it should.
Yeah, I mean, from my understanding, it just allows someone to apply for something else. It's not giving anybody permission for anything yet. I think the important part of the language is, my phone just shut off. Sorry. Jason, can you recite that language again, please? I'm sorry.
Shall the city of Vergennes permit the operation of licensed cannabis retailers subject to such. Yep, municipal ordinance and regulation.
That's the part that's important for me because it's, yeah.
And
You still have to apply for the permit.
And which,
as I understand it. Yeah,
and-
sorry.
And whichever way this council were to decide, I mean, it's not an endorsement of, or it's not a vote against. It's all it has to do is, does it go on the ballot or does it not?
Okay, so hearing no other conversations, I'll call the motion. Oh, Olivia, sorry, we can't hear you.
I'm
Sorry, Olivia, we can't, you're all broken up. Hello?
Virginia's Union. Oh, sorry. My connection's unstable. Okay.
I'm sorry, Olivia, I wanted you to speak, but
Is it, can
we
you guys
can't hear you.
me now?
You're still
Sorry.
broken up.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut her off, but we can't hear you, and so I'm going to call for the motion.
Would it be possible,
Okay.
would it be possible to have Olivia type her question in the meeting comment section? I think it's important that she has a chance to hear, say what she needs to say. If she's able to in any other way to communicate with us, is that possible?
Or maybe ask her to call. by phone.
Or
Yeah.
email or text
She'll have
somebody.
to do it some other way because we've,
Okay, I think
enable
it's
the,
important that Olivia speak because she's somebody that has a very important voice as a young person in this community. I'd love to hear her speak.
well, we don't have a
Have a
chat
chat.
box, so.
Okay.
Can you
So if you
text,
want-
Olivia, can you text or email somebody really quickly?
It also might be worth her shutting her camera off and trying her
Yeah.
with her camera off.
Or just call in?
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I'm Olivia and I'm a junior at BUHS. And I'm wondering, like Jesse said, I would really like to see a informational night. If this makes it on the ballot before the vote. I think that we need to really allow voters to be informed on the implications of this vote on youth health. There's already an immense amount of drug use behind the scenes in our school, and I don't want to see that grow in popularity. There are many health risks involved, especially in youth substance use, and I would like to see the city provide an opportunity for voters to be fully informed before they cast their vote on this matter. The legalization of marijuana has already had a huge impact on the presence in our school, and I would hate to see this next step take an even larger toll on mine and my peers.
Thank you, Olivia. That was very, very well done and very well stated. That's my personal opinion, but whether or not that we obviously can have a forum about all this, and I'm sure that George Merkel is going to want to have that before the vote too. But this is just whether we put it on the ballot or not. So does anyone else have any other comment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Great. And I want to address the
Thank you very much.
the Habitat
Jason.
for Humanity petition. As I've already mentioned, they were only able to get 60 signatures before.
Got it.
Can we mute
You, Jason?
him before he
Yep.
has his party?
Yeah.
And obviously, getting the 106 names is impossible right now. So we would need a motion from the council to accept the 60 or deny the 60.
So moved.
What are you
Second.
doing? Accepting?
I'm going to accept it.
Okay. And we have a second?
Yes.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, Lynn, I feel like we already dealt with this once and the council adopted a policy that only the 7 agencies were given the waiver.
Yeah, I understand that, but, and they did go out. Unfortunately, we had a severe outbreak that no one could have predicted. So that's why it's the way it is right now. So if you object, you're gonna have to vote no.
And by the way, I'll just throw in something about it. And I'll say that I'm a past board member for Habitat for Humanity, and I'm a volunteer builder. And starting next year, we will be building in Virgins, and we have 4 lots. And so that means we're going to be building 4 houses in Virgins. And so I think it's important for Habitat to at least try and get some money, because Habitat, the local chapter, has to raise all of its money in order to build those houses.
And just so for information only, they're asking $4,000, just so everyone knows what the amount is.
For 1,000 or for 4,000?
4,000.
4, okay.
And I'll say this, I'm the last guy that likes to waste any money, but I have admired Habitat for a great many years. I mean, they're a very, very grassroots organization, and I think that every dollar that goes to them is very well spent. That is not always the case with every nonprofit, but Habitat is boots on the ground, and I think they're a pretty good model of, you know, how we should be doing things. So that's in it. I understand Mel's point, but I'm willing to, I guess I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Okay, I have a hand up. It's not Kathy Rossier, it's another
Sure.
Kathy.
Oh,
So we have whoever Kathy is.
where is it?
Oh, I don't
Miss
know, would
Kathy?
it be on your screen, but it's right next to me, or
Kathy
factory
Rossier.
for me.
Internet has its hand up.
Can I just ask if the $4,000 would be spent with the Virgins projects? Or do we know that?
No, it would be wherever they wanted it to be spent.
Yeah, every year it's quite the amount of work to raise the amount of money to build a house. On average, even with volunteer labor and a lot of materials given, a house costs us $150,000. And we build one a year, or try to build one a year. And so it's a lot of money to raise each year.
Is it
to have
Addison
that.
County? Is it?
It's in Addison County, yes. This is the Addison County chapter.
Okay, so we
Certainly.
missed the other, just one second. We missed the other Kathy. So if that other Kathy wants to come back on, please let me know.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time.
And I have Chris Collette on here too with her hand raised.
I'm having a hard time unmuting her. Britt, can you try and unmute her?
There you go.
This is Kristen. My hand isn't raised, but thanks for asking.
Oh, you have a hand raised in your box. Okay.
Oh, I haven't touched anything.
Okay. Where was it? It was Jeremy. Jeremy, did you have a question?
I just have a comment, if I may. When I was a younger person, I actually had the opportunity to work on one of Jimmy Carter's Habitat for the Humanity homes and volunteered there for a number of days. And not only did I learn a lot of stuff that I didn't know, but it was one of the more rewarding experiences of my life. So I highly recommend both that we award them this money. And if you have time and a little skill, it's a really rewarding thing to do.
Okay, thank you, Jeremy. I see Matt Chabot has a hand up, but maybe it's really not a hand up. So if you're trying to talk to me, Matt, we're gonna unmute you.
No, I'm all set, Lynn. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I don't know, I have a hand up in that same box every time, so.
Lynn?
Yes.
Yeah, one of the things I would like is that the motion hopefully whoever made the motion is willing to accept a friendly amendment. I think that the motion needs to be clear that we are acknowledging the receipt. And I don't know if Brittany has their petition or not, but I think that it's important that we're not waiving the petition requirement, that we acknowledge that Habitat for Humanity has submitted a petition with X number of names, 60 names or whatever. And what the city council is doing is waiving a portion of the signatures and committing that it be included on the annual meeting warning.
I'll agree to that amendment.
Yeah, and the petition is at the city hall. It is there.
Yeah, I'm fine with that as long as the motion says that. That's good.
All right, if there's no other hands up, and I can't see any, so except Matt Chabot, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? It's a go. I'm sure you'll be very happy with that. I think we've covered all the extra amendments to the agenda.
Do you want to do my appointment to the Economic Development Corporation at another meeting? It doesn't have to be done now.
No, we'll do it right now. It won't take
Yeah.
very long.
I move that Rennie Perry be appointed the representative from the city of Virgins as our representative for the Addison County Economic Development Corporation. I want to do that before he changes his mind.
Second.
Oh, by the way, I've been on this board before, and I thought that it would be good to go back onto it because I'm still very active with the partnership, and we do a lot of work with the Addison County Economic Development Corporation.
Yep. Thank you, Ronnie.
I don't think there's going to be much discussion, so I'm going to call the vote before anybody changes their mind. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstention. Thank you, everybody. Okay, notices of vacancy for public office.
Yeah, let me just make one comment because I don't want to get into the middle of this fray. The reason that it's on the agenda is because it's not required by law for this notice, but traditionally we have made this notice so that it gives people an opportunity to run for office and get their petitions when you had to get petitions. But this year, people do not have to get petitions in order to get onto the ballot. And so what we want to do is know what the situation is going to be, because the one that you do have to vote on by law is the warning for the annual meeting. And we don't want what we send out to the public as positions available to differ from what's going to be on the warning. So that's why it's here, is so that we can give that advance notice, but it also is going to be the same as on the warning. That's all I have to say about it.
Oh, I'd be happy to make a motion, Lynn.
Sure.
I'd make a motion that the city council commit to a warning calling for the election of 2 aldermen, thereby enabling, if you will, or so I shouldn't say enabling, I should say, as Lynn will be returning to finish out the second year of her elected term.
Second.
The floor is now open to discussion. Dickie.
At risk of kind of returning to Tuesday's mess, I think that it's a gross misinterpretation of that there is a second year available. I think on August 18th, Mayor Lynn Donnelly signed her name to the listing of the vacancies for the special election in September. I think that specifically listed her seat as a vacancy. I think that vacancy was filled. I don't think there is a seat to return to. It seems very clear to me that the obvious move would be not to list a mayor and 2 aldermen, but to stick to the schedule as dictated by the charter and fill the actual vacancies that would be there, which would be a mayor and 3 aldermen for a 2-year term.
I agree wholeheartedly with Dickie.
Okay, I'm trying to unmute somebody here, Ray Paul. Okay. Okay,
You're on the floor, Ray. We can't hear you though.
Muted. He's got to unmute himself.
you got to unmute yourself.
Am I unmuted now?
Yes.
We can barely hear you though.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Not very well, but give it a shot.
Okay, I just took out my earbuds. Can you hear me better now?
That's better.
Yes.
So I watched the video of last meeting and I thought someone was going to reach out to the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, and I just wanted to know what the response from them was.
Yes, I did talk with them, and I think one other council member did also. And there's nothing they can offer. I knew when I called them that they couldn't, because this kind of goes into the area of what might be called a legal opinion, and they don't do legal opinions. They do things that are related to just general law. They don't dive into somebody's particular ordinances or charter to figure out what it's supposed to be doing. So
Okay.
they really offered nothing.
I
any
also
word
did get a return call from the Secretary of State's office. I told you I was going to call them. I did call them. They called me back the next day, and they said that in a city, it's ruled by the charter only.
Okay.
So there's, okay, go ahead.
Dickie?
I also spoke to the league. The person I spoke to essentially said that they would defer to the city attorney. I'm aware we've had some discussions with the city attorney. I'm not entirely sure what Jim's response was as far as his opinion, considering that would be the legal opinion that we would get. Rennie, did you get a legal opinion from Jim Ouimet?
No, Jim and I had quite a long talk, and at the end of the conversation, it was, well, there are arguments on both sides, but it's not clear what is the correct way, at least as far as he was concerned in coming up with an opinion. So we're kind of in limbo unless something else has come up that I'm not aware of, but that was from the conversation I had last week.
Did Jim have a particular stance on whether or not this is his area of expertise when you
No.
were speaking with him?
No.
David?
So I'll offer two things and a suggestion. Number one, there's a reason it's called the practice of law. And number two, I deal with an awful lot of attorneys, and a good attorney will always give you the same answer. It depends. And that's likely to be the answer that we're going to get from just about anybody. And ultimately, it's up to this council here to decide this, because we're not going to receive any clear guidance.
I tend to respectfully disagree with you, David. I think that if an attorney has this as their main focus, that we would get a really clear opinion. I'll leave it at that for the moment.
I mean, we could hire, we could burn, $300 or $400 with Steve Stitzel or any of these other guys, and we could probably get any variety of opinions, but ultimately it's our decision.
Ian?
So if I'm correct, we still have a lot of gray area in the charter with regards to this, but we have a very clear part of the charter which says that in odd years, if I'm right, there's 3 aldermen and 1 mayor elected. So it still seems to me that we're very clear in one area and not so clear in another area. And people have been acting as a position since they've been appointed to or taken over their position, as in your signature would suggest. and the voters had seen. So if the voters had seen someone signing off as mayor, they're going to assume that that seat is going to be vacant. And if the charter says that there's going to be 3 aldermen and 1 mayor elected on odd years, and that's our charter, and the other argument is very vague, I don't know how we don't go with the black and white.
Nikki?
I think we can all agree that the charter is like, does not have in it a provision for this particular instance. But I think it was very clear that the seats that were announced for the election, they had term limits set on them. It was clear that what vacancies were being filled. None of those vacancies included mayor, because it was the understanding that that seat was filled. I think that by the numbers of the people that turned out to vote, I think we can trust our community to have understood the ballot and voted to fill the vacancies as listed, which included the seat that Lynn, you held as a city councilor and vacated and took on the role of the mayor by being a part of instituting the special election in the first place and those listings. I think the wording and the structure of the listing as it went out was not done independently by any one person. I think it was a group effort. I think everyone there knew the vacancies when they listed them. I think that was very clear. I think our community understood the seats that were being filled. And unfortunately, I don't believe that there is a seat for you to return to as it's been filled. If your interest is to continue to be on the city council come March, I would encourage you to run for one of the open 2-year terms. But I think it's abundantly clear by the special election that happened in September, the warning of that election for the vacancies that were being filled, that your seat was declared vacant and filled. And that was done under your signature as mayor.
Right. And that would have been the time to disagree with those vacancy postings, and also to put acting mayor or senior alderman, if that's what you believed your position to be.
Ian?
I thought my hand went down after I got called on.
Oh, no, sorry.
All right.
Any other comments from the council? Any from the public?
I mean, I think I would reiterate my argument from last week that there was a very strong precedent set, and there was also a third name that came across my notepad here, that there apparently was a woman by the name of Sue Clark that also stepped up as mayor and relinquished the rest of her alderman term. So we have at least 2 solid instances where somebody stepped up as mayor and then relinquished the remainder of their alderman term. Lynn, you would be the 3rd example of that. And who knows if there's more.
Yeah, Lynn?
Yeah, yes.
So first off, relative to Sue Clark, Sue Clark's situation was not at all similar to the situation nor Rennie's situation. Sue Clark actually, she was elected in an even year, and when the mayor resigned, she actually ended up, when she was elected for 2 years, she actually ended up serving on the city council for 3. She actually got an extra year when she assumed the duties of the mayor. So that was not the exact same circumstances. Relative to Rennie, if you go back and I sent the minutes, the link to everybody, to all the members of the city council relative to the meeting on February 13th, 2018. And the situation, when you read those minutes, Rennie, and that was a very strange situation because Mike Daniels resigned after the deadline for nominating petitions. And so that really put the city in kind of a weird situation. And what the minutes reflect is that, Mike Daniels, he resigned around the 1st of February. Rennie had already filed a petition to run in 2019. And what he said at the February 13th meeting was that, and there was no race, he said that he would obviously end up being elected because there was no race, and he would immediately resign that seat and continue assuming the duties of mayor. And so both of those instances, Jill, that you're referring to as precedent are not the same thing that you have today with Lynn.
I disagree. I disagree.
I disagree too, Mel.
It said that that I said I would resign. In fact, I didn't, but it doesn't make any difference whether I resigned or not. The end result was my second year was not available. And the whole election went according to the charter so that the positions were the way they were supposed to be in that particular year. It had nothing to do with whether I resigned or not. If I didn't, actually what happened was that the council immediately declared a vacancy to be filled, which was filled by Dave Austin. And then when it came up for the next year, I was told, if you want to have your seat, you need to run for it. And that's the way it was done for me. So whether there was a resignation on there or not, it doesn't make any difference. The result is the same.
Okay, we have, again, I don't know if Dickie and Ian, if your hands are up on purpose. All right, so Dickie.
And specifically to the Sue Clark example, I think that does set a precedent. And when you take on the duties of the mayor, with it comes the term. Her term was her time on city council was extended a year because she served out the mayoral term as she took on the duties. I think that precedent directly relates to this. The fact that it added time versus took time away from being on city council, I don't think is important. I think the important piece of that is that when she took on the duties of the mayor, the term came with it. And I think that's what's clear here.
Zoe?
Hey, folks. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk. I understand that we are in a challenging moment in so many ways, and I want to appreciate the City Council for the various hurdles you've had to navigate in the last 6 months. This is not an easy role, so thank you. I would like to say a few things on the record, and I hope that the appropriate folks can respond. In the meeting packet for today, there was a conflict of interest policy that outlines a conflict of interest as the direct or indirect personal or financial interest of an alderman. I believe Mayor Donnelly voting on the issue tonight of her term would be in direct violation of the conflict of interest policy as stated, as she has a direct personal interest in the matter. Additionally, as this issue pertains directly to Mayor Donnelly, I do not believe she is the right person to reach out to the Secretary of State, the City Attorney, or the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. Our city manager should be the point person of contact for those entities, and I'm grateful, Mr. Perry, for you reaching out and sharing the insight that you gained from those entities. I'd also like to point out to 2 issues relating to the September special election and the upcoming March election. Alderman Austin mentioned this, but Mayor Donnelly signed the special election notice in August, announcing the available positions and associated terms for the September election. In doing so, Mayor Donnelly was giving her stamp of approval to those positions and term limits, and I'm disappointed to see her reverse course on that. Additionally, local elections are up to the jurisdiction of local entities, not the Secretary of State. And if there were questions regarding the legitimacy of the September election, which were brought up last week, which was concerning to me, or if Mayor Donnelly believed those positions and terms were posted incorrectly, voters have 15 days to file a complaint. The time for questioning the legitimacy of the September election and the positions gained has passed. Given all of this, I personally believe that the appropriate course is putting forth 3 aldermen and 1 mayor, and I do not think it's appropriate for Mayor Donnelly to vote on this issue. Please know, I don't think this is a reflection of your term of service, Mayor Donnelly, just per in accordance with the conflict of interest policy that was included in the packet this evening. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Zoe, very much. Let's see, who's
I'm not sure.
next?
I'm not sure. There are 3 hands up. I don't know who came up first.
I think Dave Smalls maybe was next. We'll try
Okay.
to, we'll get everybody. David?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone. Obviously, always fun and exciting here at Virginia City Council meetings. On Thursday, January 7th, Andy Kirkcaldy reported in the Addison Independent that Mayor Lynn Donnelly announced on Wednesday morning after the previous Tuesday meeting that you would not seek to retain your two-year term. So I guess the 2-year term that you were elected to previous to being, to now being the mayor, to filling the mayor's seat. So I guess I'm just curious if something changed there. And if you could speak to that change of heart, Mayor Donnelly. Thank you.
I did not put this on the agenda, so it's up for the agenda because I believe that people felt that they did not, and I didn't bring it up at the last meeting, but it was added to the agenda. So we wanted to have people have their say tonight. So the rightful decision can be made. That's why. So Chris Spencer.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for fielding my question. The one thing I wanted to know, and I was hoping someone in City Council might have an answer to, is just getting sort of a timeline of when the conversation began around having this conversation around the ambiguity over whether Lynn could take back her seat or not. I think it's putting us in a really difficult position right now to be having a conversation on this when we know that decisions have to be made quickly about who will be on the ballot come March. And so I think it's unfortunate if there was a lot more time and this was withheld until now. But if someone could speak to sort of when this discussion began, that would be super helpful. Thanks.
I can answer the best that I know of. It wasn't brought to my attention until we started to do the preparing for the warning and what was going to be on it. And Mel and I had a discussion. Mel called me and said, I don't think this is correct. And I'm going to give it over to Mel because I don't want to put words into his mouth. So there was no preconceived agenda or any of that. It just happened to be when we got the notice from Brittany. Mel, do you want to try to answer it all?
Oh, I think it was, I'm not sure of the exact date. I'm going to say sometime mid, maybe late November is, Brittany had, brought this up that there was some disagreement, and I had sent emails to her and Joan, and there was some communication there. And I really thought that it was settled that that because the charter says that Lynn is strictly assuming the duties of mayor, she's not the mayor. She's just assuming those duties until the end of the mayor's term, that she does not lose the second year of her elected term. She was elected for 2 years last March. And so that's, and nobody really, I didn't receive a lot of communication in that regard. And what's a little bit unfortunate is that, had this been discussed in November, maybe there could have been additional time to do additional research, but the clock is ticking here.
Sivan, I hope I pronounced your name right.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
And that pronunciation was quite good, Mayor Donnelly. I'm Sivan Kotel. I live on South Maple Street. Thank you, folks, for your time. And thank you, council members, for the time that goes into being council members. I'm quite familiar with that time requirement. I sit on 5 boards in Vermont, one of which I'm chairman of Porter. So, you know, I'm not a stranger to controversy. We've been through a lot of these hard times. One of the aspects around conflicts of interest that is often navigated when it comes to board work or council work or any other matter like that is that it's always described as a real conflict or the appearance of a conflict, right? You often hear the phrase conflict of interest or even the appearance of conflict of interest, right? And those optics matter because they're a very important facet of leadership, right? For leadership, whether a board or a council being the leaders of a town, or for the leader of those leaders, you know, I've been chairman of Porter, or in your case, Mayor Donnelly as leader of this board, those optics are paramount because if we lose the moral high ground, then we call into question the sanctity of the actions that have been taken by the whole board, or in this case, the council. And so I'm very concerned as a resident with the optics of the appearance of self-dealing here. And I want to state so emphatically, I'm not accusing you at all, Mayor Donnelly, of self-dealing. I'm worried though about the appearance of, you know, doing something that is in your interest, didn't have to run again, maybe you should have, maybe not, you know, and it seems to me quite clear that in times of gray areas, it's incumbent on us as leaders, or you folks specifically as leaders of Regens, to take the action that is less in our personal interest so that we retain the moral high ground, and therefore can very clearly say, we know we did what was in the city's interests, we didn't even do the thing that was in our own personal interest. So with that concern on optics, I really hope, Mayor Donnelly, that you can resolve the situation for all of us and for the whole council, because if you simply take the high ground and say, you know what, I'm going to pull myself out of the running of this question because I want to be 100% clear that there was not only not a conflict, but there isn't even the appearance of conflict, then the whole matter could be resolved. And I strongly encourage you, if you're interested in being on the council, I hope that you'll run again. You know, it would be one of those seats. And I think that it would help your campaign if you had taken that high ground stance. So thank you for your time.
I would like to just comment to those who weren't on the meeting last week. I did ask to abstain, and I said I don't want to be part of this vote, and I was asked to vote. So, and I thought from that request that I had to vote, and obviously that is why a lot of this has come up. So, you know, it's just, there's no act of deception here or anything else. It's just trying to correct maybe what is not understood and what the charter really says. And I'm caught unfortunately in the middle.
I'm very sensitive to being caught in that hard place, Mayor Donnelly, and I encourage you to walk out of this by making it clear to all that there isn't a conflict, by you therefore not taking a vote and perhaps just stepping aside entirely out of it, because it will be much better for the city of Vergennes if there is no question, right? And if there's a question of, well, was it okay? Was it not? Was it self-dealing? Was it a conflict? That just adds to so much of the ugly situation that we all as a community dealt with in this past year. And I think we're all trying to move past. And I really, I give you credit and benefit of the doubt. I don't think that you're intentionally trying to do anything untoward. I think it would help prove that to all if you are the one who takes the high ground and steps aside. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jill?
So I've been waiting patiently since Zoe made her remarks. I'm going to rewind a little bit. I agree with Zoe's comments about the conflict of interest policy. I think that's a really important point to kind of nail home that, Mel, you said yourself that conflict of interest policy has been in place for quite a few years. 2019 for sure, 2020, it was definitely understood to be in place. There's certainly, to Sivan's point, a part of that conflict of interest policy that says that you will not have any personal or financial gain. This is obviously a personal gain. And in my experience, I agree with Sivan as well that the appearance of a conflict of interest can be a big deal. So that's my part of that. There was another comment that Mel, you had made about saying that Lynn had not been mayor or is not mayor. I respectfully disagree with that statement. I've been a part of multiple meetings where Lynn has introduced herself as mayor. There's multiple signatures with Lynn having introduced herself as mayor, and Lynn, you're still listed as mayor on our website. So if that's not correct, then, I mean, at the very least, the website should have been corrected. And I think that for all intents and purposes, by signing the vacancies notice that Dickie mentioned earlier today, that just solidified it for me. I mean, right at the onset. And then I also appreciate that you, Lynn, had intended to recuse yourself or decide not to vote last week. I think that that was the right thing to do. I don't believe that you were asked to vote unless my recollection is rusty. But I think that you were told that you had the ability to vote, and that whether or not you wanted to vote based on a conflict of interest, that was up to you. So thank you for hearing me.
Ian.
I just want to go back to what Chris Spencer was looking for, an accurate timeline for city council members. So the first email that I received with any information on this came December 30th from Mel.
Yeah.
So, and then the following last Tuesday seemed a relatively rushed discussion. But the first information that we all got came December 30th.
Agreed.
Tim Cook.
Hi. I have really appreciated the time I've worked with you, Lynn. I'm really thankful that we've had that opportunity. We've done positive work right up till tonight. And I appreciate all the support you've given to things that are important to Virginians. And less than a year ago, you won by a landslide. And we, as a community, I think would really like to move forward. And I think, you know, like, I just want to echo that, like, this is going to drag out this testy summer for longer. And I really want to move on. And I hope that you will run again. But I don't think that we should try some vague legal language to retain a seat, because the optics are bad, as Seven said. That's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Thanks, Tim. Jason, I think you were up next.
So I think here, this is what I see. As I see it, I think we are, we're at a point where we absolutely need an answer to this question, right? So we need to have an answer that is done, right? So I think we have two choices. We're either going to answer this question by spending money on attorneys defending a warning that's not unanimous, because you guys are going to split, right? So we're going to defend that as the city at some point and say, we defend that position, or we're going to spend money only on an attorney because the decision that Lynn makes tonight gets us out of this jam. That's the way I see it. I don't know how much more clearly. At the end of the day, Mel always used to tell me, as the DRB chair, you don't have to agree on every one of these votes. My hope is that this community could get together and agree on this vote, but you don't have to. And at the end of the day, if you don't agree on this vote and it goes a direction that you don't like, then you have a remedy, right? And that's what we're going to end up with if we, you know, or we can just keep debating whether we think this or not. But at the end of the day, we have to make a decision. You have to stick by it. You have to pay attorneys to decide these things, because if you can't agree and you need an answer, that's what you do. Thank you.
David?
Yeah, we've had, I don't know, going on a few hours of discussion on this thing now. And there's obviously a bunch of arguments that can be made either way. I mean, there's one thing that's absolutely crystal clear, and I'll be the first to acknowledge this is a mess. But the reality of the situation is that that the charter actually is really clear, and it's really clear in that it does not specifically say that a sitting senior alderman relinquishes the remainder of their term. It absolutely does not say that. Maybe it should. And I've had discussions with some of my colleagues here that's one of the things that, you know, it's job number two, if not number one, is addressing these issues in the charter. It's not what it says. And if that's if that's the intent, it needs to say that, and there's validity to arguments relative to what may or may not have been a precedent. Those are entirely valid arguments. And there's arguments relative to, what's right for the community. There really isn't any argument about what the charter says, because the charter, you don't need to be an attorney to interpret language that there is a complete absence of. Granted, it should be clear, doesn't say that, and it doesn't have to say that. And this is an incredibly, it's an incredibly frustrating situation. And we can either, spend another 3 hours debating this, or we can make a decision. And I think we need to make a decision. I'm going to call the question.
Okay, the question has been called. That ends discussion. So I want to just say a couple of things. I had a letter prepared that I'm not going to read now, but I want you to know that the people that have spoke, I've certainly listened to you. A lot of you are friends and people that I understand and listen to and take into account every time we talk. But there's also was an overwhelming amount of people who called me and said, I want you to stay on. We voted you in. And to those people, I say, I'm sorry, because I thought I was doing the best for the city. I'm sorry. It's hard to take this all the time.
Lynn,
Yep.
can I give you?
No,
Can I give you?
no, you
Okay.
can't. No, you can't. This is my time. And I think a lot of the new council people came on with a automatic bias that I thought as they worked with me would get over. And that has not happened.
All right, Lynn's on a meltdown.
Listen,
Peter, you're not muted.
it's comments like that that aren't deserved. I have lived in this city my whole life. I have worked in this city my whole life. I have given more than anybody could possibly give of my time. So to all of you that have nothing good to say, I'm glad you'd be out of my life, because I'm not going to miss you. But to all the rest of them that support me, I thank you so much. And I appreciate everything that you have done and said to me in the last few days. So to this discussion tonight, I cannot continue this badgering all the time. It's not worth it. And whether I have a meltdown or not, it's because I care about this city more than anyone of you will ever care for the city. My parents were they were a statue in this city and brought me up to be respectful of everyone. This council is not. So with that, I will not run for council in 2022. I will not be part of this continuing, and in March, it'll be my last day serving on the city of Vergennes. And I'm sorry for all the trouble you think we caused, but if you had any idea, the corruption that has happened in this city, and no one would stand up for it except me, you guys don't have a clue. And the city is in a mess. And the financial mess is going to be somebody else's problem. But when this all collapses around you, I want you to look around at each other and remember who was here. because not one person has stood up tonight and said, no, she did a good job. And I don't need to pat on the back from anyone. So I'm going to call the question because there is no question. I am not going to continue. So there you go. So let's just move on. That's my answer. And I don't want to.
So Lynn, I'm obviously very sorry to hear that it has come to this. I think it's very sad, and I've said this before, this has been a slap in the face to you. Would like to withdraw, in light of what you've just said, I want to withdraw my motion.
Do we have a okay on the second?
Yes.
All right, we're going to move on. The operation of this, the hours of operation at the City Hall.
Well, Mel is the one that asked to put that on. I'm not quite sure why.
All that I wanted to do was talk about the hours. I think that currently, just to get this out in the public, that it's my understanding that currently the clerk's office is closed on Tuesdays. And also, it's my understanding, Rennie, if you correct me if I'm wrong, relative to the answering of phones, because at one point it was decided that City Hall phones wouldn't be answered because of the backlog. And I just, hope that, I just want to say that I really, I certainly understand that they're behind and they're trying to get caught up, but there's a customer service role that needs to be played. And so I just hope that we can get back to normal and not have City Hall closed any days of the week, and that phones are answered when they ring. So maybe you can just give some update as to when the city might be returning to normal office hours and normal phone answering and serving the public.
Well, it kind of depends on the COVID situation that we're faced with, and the situation has actually been getting worse, not better. And so I don't see that turning around very soon. I have not received any complaints from the public about it. That they have been answering, they have been calling back after 2 o'clock to whoever left a message. And our actual traffic into City Hall is very, very low. So I think we should continue this way, but you have a new city manager coming on. I'm out of it as of tonight. Except that I will be, I guess, technically the city manager until Ron comes on Monday. And you may decide to do something else. Right now, I think we still need to continue that way because there's still a lot of catching up to do. It was something that I never dealt with as a city manager. You didn't, Mel, about this COVID thing where it literally shut down City Hall for a couple of months. I mean, the backlog to try and catch up on is amazingly high. It's just, and the conditions we're in now doesn't make it much better. I think that we probably should stay that way. But as I said, there's a new city manager coming on, and he may have a different recommendation for you or a different mode of accomplishing the catching up on the backlog. That's all I can say.
Okay, so in essence, the closed on Tuesdays to the public is going to continue until further notice.
Yes, I mean, I guess the council, if the council as a board wants it to be different, then you can say so, and we shall follow because you're the ones in charge. But right now, it doesn't seem to be that bad, and I haven't had a big public reaction to what we're doing.
I think we need to be answering the phones.
Okay.
How much of the recording has been caught up? The land records.
I think we're in September.
So it's still 3 months behind?
Yes.
Is the
It
extra,
takes, it takes a long time to do it. And
Is
remember, they have all their other duties that are still going on.
right?
I understood from Joan that the recordings were caught up.
So,
No,
No.
so we're in a situation where, unlike businesses that actually provide something, we take things. You know, people give us money and there's things that they receive in return, but they don't see it that way. We need to answer the phones.
I saw somebody's hand up, Dickie.
Rennie, as far as like the office being closed on Tuesday, that seems to have been helpful, just in the fact that we've managed to catch up on the recordings as much as we have, even if we're not current. As far as the phone piece, do you have any type of data as far as how many calls have been coming in, number of voicemails you have to return when it's time to do that? I think that would be helpful as far as how much of an imposition not being readily available by phone for people.
yeah, I have not kept any stats
Brittany
on
might be
that.
able to answer that, though.
What's that?
Brittany might be able to answer that.
Yeah, I'd say I probably answer 6 to 10 voicemails a day. And if people can't get a hold of us, my voicemail does say we're open, so they'll pop in. We're finding that a lot of other towns around us are closed. So we have like an increased number of car registrations and birth certificate requests, notary service, just because we're picking up some of the like Ferrisburgs and Penn who are not open to the public at all, only by appointment. We're picking up some of their people. So that's all I have to say, I guess. Oh, and I would like to know, the only reason why we closed on Tuesdays and put the phones on pause is because the council asked us to do it to allocate more time towards getting caught up on backlogs.
Right. Brittany, can I just ask, has being able to put the phones on what auto answer or whatever you just called it, and then returning voicemails, does that help for you guys to have more time to catch up, or do you find that a hindrance?
I have personally found it incredibly helpful because when we're recording and into things, the amount of phone calls we get, you're always pausing and picking up where you left off, and that delays you, and also it leads to some mistakes sometimes too, because it's like, oh yeah, where was I? What was I doing? So I found it very helpful, and being closed on Tuesdays has been wonderful, only because we need to get in our vault to do recording. And we have a lot of researchers in right now because interest rates are like historically low. So people are refinancing like crazy. And just to be able to get in the vault to put things in the records and not have to work around the researcher in there has been great.
Okay. Do you have any other questions, Mel, about that?
No.
All right. Is there any other manager's report?
I don't have anything in the manager's report. There were a couple of things that Mel had asked about, kind of having a tutorial about the budget report as well as the fund accounts. I'm going to recommend something different because it's getting on in time. I really don't want to do that tutorial tonight. Possibly when the audit is completed, which should be either very soon or no later than the end of the month, I think that if you dedicate a meeting or a segment of the meeting for talking about the audit, talking about the budget report and what it tells you, and talking about the funds that we have, the different funds that we have, that you could combine it into one session just about finances of the city. And you may even want to make it a work session and really concentrate on some other thing that you should delve into more deeply. I think that Mel is right, that there should be a time when those are explained to particularly the new council members as to what it's telling you. And it's important. I don't think it should be done tonight. I think it should be done in another time with real concentration on it. And I don't have any manager's report. As I said earlier, this is my swan song. It's been real. And I hope that I gave a reasonable service to my community. This is why I did it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Rennie.
Rennie, thank you very much.
Thank you, Rennie.
Couldn't have done it without you.
Thank you, Rennie.
Thank you.
Is there any other comments to the manager's report? Okay, so in my mayor's report, I will apologize for breaking down. That's just who I am. So I wish you all a good night, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
I'm sorry, I have one question before we adjourn. I'm sorry. We respectfully, we didn't choose an option for the ballot. Option A or option B. I think we just need to put that out there. So I think it's, go ahead.
Well, I quite frankly, I assume that it would be option A.
I assumed as well, but I think
be-
we just need to articulate it. I'm
I think
sorry.
it was pretty clear.
I think it was too, but I think we just needed to articulate it. Thank you for humoring me.
All right, I take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
Now your second is Dicky. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Good night, everybody.
Good night.